We're back!
Hey guys, how are you?
Are you ready to do some myth busting?
I am.
Let's get it!
Yeah. What are we myth busting? Tell me.
Well, there's obviously a lot of myths out there nutritionally.
Yeah.
But I got sent something, and I got about 3 pages in, and I was like, holy shit, we have to do a video about this.
I know what you're talking about. I've seen this.
What?
It's the F45 fat loss manual.
Oh my god.
I've seen it.
Like, okay, so first off, to be full disclosure, you've trained at F45s before.
Yeah, and to be honest, like their program is awesome. Like I love functional training. I like high intensiveness training, and it's definitely that.
Yeah, you like running around and bouncing around. Like
yeah, it's cardio. It's a lot of cardio.
Rabbit on speed or something, you know.
Yes.
For those of us who like to just lift weights, that looks just terrible. But you enjoyed it, so.
I did. I'd actually probably really struggle at that time of training right now, if I'm being perfectly honest, since I haven't actually done a lot of it in my recent competitions. So
they released a fat loss manual. F45 did. And there's a lot of myths in here that are really bad. Now, to be fair, these have all been taken from other places. I don't think F45 came up with it.
No, these are not like proprietary recommendations.
Yeah,
it's definitely a wash of.
They didn't start the bullshit, but they propagated it.
Oh yeah.
So we gonna crush it. So we have a list of, I don't know, probably about 15 here. We narrowed out a few of them, but we also only made it like halfway through before like we were like. So we're gonna bang off about 15 of these that we found to be the most egregious purveyors of bullshit, and share it with you guys. So hopefully you can learn something. So, Holly, number 1, you must eat every 2 to 4 hours so you burn more fat.
That is an interesting comment. Okay, so we know that from the wealth of scientific literature out there that meal frequency and meal timing actually makes absolutely no difference to fat loss. So there is not a requirement to really eat every 2 to 4 hours like they're recommending, because it all comes down to your 24-hour calorie balance. Whether you choose to eat 2 large meals or 8 smaller meals actually makes no difference to the amount of fat that you lose. If you chose to have 2 really large meals, separated by a large gap in the middle of the day, of course at that first meal you're going to be storing a lot of calories from fats and carbohydrates. However, then you're going to have a period where you're also burning a lot of carbohydrates and fats. So it comes back to energy balance over a 24-hour period.
Right, even if you had like 8 small meals, even though you're storing less energy at each meal, you've still got more meals throughout the day, so you have more frequent time points and less time in the post-absorptive period, to where you're storing those little bits throughout the day. The overall storage is going to boil down to your energy balance.
Yeah, exactly.
So meal frequency, and this has been borne out in dozens of studies, does not make a difference in fat loss. Myth busted. Number 2, eat 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of total body weight for optimal muscle mass.
This is your wheelhouse, protein. Let's talk about protein.
You set me up for that one? Yeah, so it looks like the actual maximum benefits are around 2.4 to 2.8 grams per kilo of lean body mass. So this would be, I wouldn't say this is the most egregious thing on there, but it's certainly on the lower side of what would be optimal, and I would definitely not call this optimal.
No, I think this will also be a problem for somebody that is very obese, thinking about a high amount of fat mass to lean body mass relative. So
yeah, so if you're using total body weight, people who are really lean like you, they may be under eating what the maximum benefits of protein are.
Yeah.
But somebody who's really obese
would be way over.
They'd be way over. Exactly. If they're like 150 kilos or something, and they're eating, like over 200 grams of protein, but their lean body mass is much lower, then it doesn't line up.
I would be eating 61 grams of protein per day based on my current body weight,
low.
and I actually am eating around 150 a day based on my requirements. So interesting.
Everyone should consume 50 to 100 grams of carbohydrate per day. This minimizes insulin production and increases fat metabolism. You're doing this to avoid carbs turning into fat.
Okay, so that just sounds like a disaster waiting to happen, because everybody has individual energy requirements. So putting everybody on 50 to 100 grams of carbs. Like, can you imagine how low their calorie requirements are?
Yeah, and that's not taking into account how active they are, their lean body mass, whether it's male or female.
There are so many variables that actually determine what goes into making somebody's carbohydrate requirements. Like, that's just one blanket rule is...
Yeah, we've seen people who can lose weight on 300 grams of carbs a day, and other people had to be under 100.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to tell. Plus, what do we know? Like, they're worried about carbs turning into fats. What do we know about that?
So de novo lipogenesis is actually very, very difficult to take place. So there was a study that was published where we took females and overfed them by 50% of their maintenance calories. And what that actually found was that around 300 grams of fat was deposited, but of that 300 grams, only 4 grams, I think, was from carbohydrates itself. The remainder was actually from fats found in the foods that they were consuming. So carbohydrates tends to provide like a metabolic cushion, I suppose, for fat storage. It's not that carbs themselves are actually bad for us.
Yeah, you don't really store carbs themselves as fat. Carbs are preferentially burned so they can provide a surplus when you store more of the fat you take in.
You say things so much nicer than I do. Beautiful.
That is how I won you over. It's supposed to be my sweet serenade of science.
I know, it's so lovely.
Cut out the crap. Carbs, refined sugar, alcohol, and all processed foods. Well, if you couldn't get lean having alcohol, sugar, and processed foods, how do you explain you?
Well, you want to know something. So I've obviously recently just done my contests, and almost every single day I can say that I would have had a refined carbohydrate, and I probably had alcohol every week. And I just won 2 pro cards.
Yeah, I mean, in the context of overall energy balance, it probably is a good idea to limit your processed food. You had a lot of salads, a lot of vegetables, all those sorts of things. Yeah. But you also allowed yourself a treat here and there, but you fit it into your overall daily calorie.
Yeah, and I think this kind of loops back to that first one, 24-hour calorie balance.
Exactly. So they've actually have studies that have shown that between high sugar and low sugar diets, there's no difference in fat loss if you equate calories. So, sorry, F45. Start your day with 400 mils of H2O plus lemon. Now make sure you wait
20 minutes.
20 minutes after that. This cleanses your liver and increases your fat metabolism.
Okay, well, let's talk about the liver.
Citation needed.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you feel like talking about the liver and what it actually does?
Well, first off, I want to know what toxins we're cleansing. I would like to know how lemon does that. And I would also like to know why you gotta wait 20 minutes.
I feel like I know what the response would be.
What?
Think about lemons. What are you going to say? Acid regulation, alkalinity versus acid.
Oh, God.
I feel like that's where that one goes.
Yeah, well, the alkaline...
It burns out all the toxins.
Yeah, so that'd just be a big fat no.
All right.
You want to hit? I'm gonna hit. Hang on. Set me up for this one. This is a softball.
Your body can only absorb 20 grams of protein, so you don't need any more. Otherwise, you're overdoing it.
Oh, yes.
Well, here's the first thing they said. Your requirements are 1 to 1.5 grams per kilo total body weight. So I'm not really quite sure. Does that mean you'd need to eat 10 meals, 8 meals, 6 meals a day?
Yeah, no more than 20.
Not to go over 20 in one meal?
Yeah, so that's actually completely erroneous.
The verbiage of absorption there is
yeah, so first off we have to define what absorption is. You can eat 100 grams of protein in a meal and you will absorb all that protein. It will cross the intestinal lumen and wind up in circulation.
Yes,
if you're talking about what is optimal for anabolism, 20 grams is probably around closer to the minimum for triggering anabolism, and the max is probably closer to 40. But if 20 grams of protein was all you could absorb, then whenever you went over that your gut doesn't like to let undigested food just like sit in there. It would draw water in and you would have diarrhea. So every time you went over 20 grams of protein at a meal, you would have massive diarrhea. That doesn't happen. So sorry, F45, that's also wrong.
Next question. It's not a question, it's a fact, statement rather. Keep dairy to a minimum. but no validation or reasoning behind that.
Citation needed.
So a study by Stu Phillips actually was able to show that people that consume or are regular consumers of dairy are actually healthier. They have greater bone density and
More lean body mass too.
more lean body mass.
Yeah.
So there's one.
And actually, there's a lot of research data that shows that people who eat higher dairy, like higher in the dairy consumption, actually like lose more fat on diets. Now, I don't know if it's a causative effect, but yeah, it certainly doesn't seem that dairy is a negative influence on fat loss. And further, it's a very high quality source of protein.
Yeah. The only reason you should really avoid dairy is if you have a clinically diagnosed lactose intolerance. Obviously, we then don't possess the enzyme to metabolize and break down lactose, which is the sugar found in dairy products. So yeah, dairy is wonderful, and it's a very great protein source for many of us. If I cut out dairy, I would really probably struggle to hit my daily protein requirements, to be honest. So yeah. All right.
Dairy's good.
Switch all your refined carbs to a small amount of fruits for better efficiency of utilizing fat.
Whoa, stop. Better efficiency of utilizing fat. So they just stuck a bunch of words together that don't even make sense.
You just blow my mind.
So to burn fat, efficiency is a bad thing. You actually want to be inefficient with energy production. If you're efficient with energy production, it actually means that you're burning less calories. Mm-hmm. So are they saying that you want to cut out processed stuff because it'll make you more efficient, but that would make you lose less fat? So that doesn't really make sense.
I'm just generally confused by that statement. I would like to move on. But
moving on.
Here is the favorite, well, my personal favorite here was do not eat carbs after 5 p.m.
Give me that.
I quit my job.
Would you mind explaining why that's bullshit?
So we've touched on this before. It all comes back down to 24-hour calorie balance. So whether you consume all of your carbohydrates at 10 p.m. at night, which is actually not something that I have not done before.
Yeah,
I've gone pretty close.
Yeah, you would have like...
I would have probably 80% of my carbs after 9 p.m. when I was doing my contest prep, because I enjoyed sitting down to a lovely big meal or sweets.
You're just supposed to be a genetic freak.
I know, apparently I'm not a human.
Well, there was actually a study done at the University of Jerusalem where they looked at having 80% of their carbohydrate intake after 6 p.m. or spreading it evenly throughout the day.
And guess what?
They actually found that people who were having it after 6 actually had a little bit better fat loss. So, sorry F45, but that's bullshit.
Yeah.
All right. Insulin stores body fat, especially processed carbs. High insulin equals high fat.
Storage. Go for it.
Insulin. There was actually, so insulin. Sorry, she had too much sugar before she came in.
Apparently.
Too much insulin, I can see the fat accumulating. So there's actually been studies looking at controlling calories, but different insulin levels in diet. So there's a study done by Kevin Hall, a metabolic ward study, where they had calories equated, protein equated, and they had people on a ketogenic diet or a non-ketogenic diet. They found the ketogenic diet was 20% lower in insulin. No difference in fat loss. Actually, if anything, the group on the non-ketogenic diet lost a little bit more body fat. So, sorry, insulin does not supersede a caloric deficit. Oh, here you go. Avoid gluten at all times. Gluten leads to weight gain, decreased absorption, and damaged cells.
Okay. Well, I would like to take the lead on this one because I am celiac.
Decreased absorption and weight gain.
Well, that's exactly the opposite. So, do you know, to actually clinically diagnose somebody with something like celiac, one of the telltale signs and symptoms is rapid weight loss.
Weight loss.
And that's due to deficiency in certain micronutrients. So,
and calories. You're not absorbing the calories.
So, I'm not sure how gluten causes weight gain.
Well, if it's damaging the intestinal epithelium.
If it's damaging my cells.
Yeah, you would have weight loss. So, like, things that cause malabsorption actually cause weight loss. That's why, like, what do you call it? The tapeworm diet exists.
Oh my gosh.
you know, which is stupid. Don't do it, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the conception came along that gluten is bad for everybody. And to be honest, when you start purposefully avoiding foods that contain gluten, so your wheat-based products, to be like bread, cereals, grains, all those kinds of things, you're actually changing your gut microflora. And then if you try and reintroduce these foods, you can start to have some of those, abdominal symptoms that can come from IBS. So the problem with things like gluten is only in the cases for people that are or do have a sensitive GI and have like irritable bowel syndrome, so IBS. So you don't go out of your way to avoid gluten, please, people.
Yeah, and just on a side note, like, know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, this sentence doesn't even make sense. Decreased absorption and weight gain. I mean, I can't. I'm sorry. It's so dumb. Okay. Buy organic. Clean eating reduces toxins, and that will help you lose weight. What toxins? Name them specifically.
I hate the word
citation needed.
Cleanses and toxins.
Yeah, it's very triggering for us, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a liver and we have kidneys.
Interestingly, if you actually have actual toxins, it tends to increase energy expenditure because your body has to spend energy to get rid of them.
Yeah.
So the toxins, if you were having them, would actually lead to weight loss rather than weight gain. So how does that work? You keep using this word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Oh, the last bit.
Yep, so, here you go. This is yours. Here's your softball. Are you ready for it?
Oh, I'm ready.
God damn it. You can cut that out. Or leave it in, whichever. Avoid artificial sweeteners. They can't be absorbed and they accumulate inside our bodies, damage our metabolism, and lead to weight gain.
Oh my god, can you imagine what the inside of my GI must look like?
If that's the case, so I don't understand. They can't be absorbed and yet they accumulate inside our body.
So if they're not absorbed, wouldn't that mean that they're just like lingering somewhere?
So, like, if that was the
You'd
case,
shit them out?
our entire they accumulate, so you're not shitting them out,
Now I'm
but they're not absorbed.
I'm confused.
So they must just be like, your intestinal epithelium must just be replaced with like sucralose. Like you've just got like chlorinated sugar molecules that have taken the place of your epithelium.
I've just got a whole bag of sweeteners stored in here somewhere.
Yeah, literally, if they go and scope the inside of your GI, it's just going to be a bunch of white crystals.
White powder.
Yeah. Moving on. So sorry, F45. That actually might be the dumbest thing that was on this thing.
So
Did you guys proofread this by chance?
There is no data, to my knowledge, and please, if somebody has a research paper that can suggest or show significant, health problems as a result of artificial sweeteners, then please let us know.
I feel like this was actually like a troll manual. Let's see if people actually believe this stuff and follow it.
No, maybe they did because they knew we would talk about it.
I have no idea, but yeah, we're going to talk about it. All right, last one. And again, we could have gone on hundreds, but we've only got so much time, and you guys got short attention, so. Accelerate days for optimal fat loss. Consume protein and vegetable only. You will have increased urination due to the drop in carbohydrate. Alrighty then. So if that's for optimal fat loss, why wouldn't you just do that every day?
That just sounds like metabolic adaptation waiting to happen. This is one of the reasons, guys, why there is obesity and there is weight gain and a weight problem.
Weight regain.
Weight regain.
Yeah.
Because we are drastically dropping calories. We're doing these acceleration days where calorie intakes are very, very low.
Yeah. How is any of this sustainable? Like, how is this sustainable? Like, assuming everything on here was true, how is this even sustainable?
No, it's not. This is what leads to weight regain. If you attempted to do a diet like this, which basically eliminates everything, and all you have to do is eat grass, a little bit of protein apparently, but it has to be organic, so the grass-fed variety. There's nothing left to eat, so your calories, we just worked out very roughly based on the recommendations what my calories would be, was 736 calories from protein and carbs only.
And then they don't really say anything about fat. Yeah, so you could have like
use an arbitrary
20
number.
or you could have 200.
It would be like 1,000 calories.
Avocados, as long as you have a big old avocado, that's fine.
Yeah, so it really frustrates me because I work with a large population of people with metabolic adaptation and, you know, suppressed slow metabolisms. And part of the problem is because of these crazy restrictive diets.
Yeah, this is weight regain just waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Like this is a yo-yo diet waiting to happen.
So let's wrap this up because this is funny to us, but we obviously need to make a point here that it is not something that's sustainable. We don't encourage this type of...
This is what's really hard, is there are people who don't have business giving this kind of advice. And in general, they probably mean well, and they're probably trying to do something well. But if you don't know what you're talking about, like it can actually harm people. So, like, all this stuff on here is just not true. It's not true. And it's really frustrating for us because people, like, maybe they go in and they like the training wherever they're training at. And they say, well, they probably know about nutrition too. No, just because you know about training doesn't mean you know anything about nutrition. They're very separate. And I mean, I think somebody sent me a diet from one of the owners of a gym. It was an F45 gym, and her diet was like 900 calories a day based off this. Like 900 calories. Like, how are you supposed to do the high intensity training or the high intensiveness training that F45 will require if you're on 900 calories a day?
Yeah, it would be very difficult. I mean, I loved that style of training and I still do it because I enjoy it. But to do that on the calorie requirements that are recommended are insane.
F45, tear down this wall. No, I actually just rip up just take this guide and you can just and look.
Yeah.
Now I have to go to the bathroom because it was full of shit. I'll be right back.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. We hope that you did take something home from that.
Yeah, and just, you know, try not to get caught up in some of the BS that's out there. I know it's hard. Focus on sustainability, focus on adherence, focus on the general rules that work. Hard work, tenacity, patience, no crazy fad diets, no crazy crash diets. And enjoy your holiday.